Good morning. Mr. Fehr, am I saying it correctly?
Fehr is correct.
All right.
But it is Daniel instead of David.
And should have put my glasses on. I appreciate that.
And my banker gets us mixed up too because the EL and the ID, you know.
Appreciate it. Don't accuse me of being a banker. Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate?
I affirm.
Please state and spell your name and provide your address for the record.
Daniel Fehr, Daniel Fehr.
And your address too, please?
308 8th Street, Southwest, Unit 14, West Bend, Iowa, 50597.
Thank you. Mr. Fehr, it's my understanding that you have submitted a video you would like displayed.
I think that would be helpful. My grandson actually made the video. It's on YouTube. I think that would explain a lot of our farming operation and maybe take care of some redundancy as far as me trying to explain it. He's a lot more involved actually in the farm operation today than I am, although I go out every day. He lives within a quarter, less than a half a mile of the proposed route. Yeah, I think the video would explain a lot of things.
Okay, thank you. Can we pull that up?
I'm writing to share my concerns on the Summit Carbon Pipeline and the damage it would cause to myself, family farm, and employees. The Summit Carbon Pipeline is a privately owned company that does not benefit the public. As a beginning farmer, I will not be compensated for my losses and expenses that I have spent to better the land. I have safety concerns for my family, neighbors, and livestock in the area. I am a 6th generation farmer, and my childhood days were spent with my great-grandpa, grandpa, and dad while I learned from them how to improve the quality of the land. Upon my high school graduation, I was able to purchase land with the assistance of a beginning farmer's loan. I took the classes, attended meetings in order to set up a payment plan and the necessary steps it would take to ensure the land would be cared for and have a high production rate. In 2020, I married my wife, with whom I now have 2 children. I take my son on the farm, and he loves it just as I did. Thankfully, with the beginning farmer's loan, I'm able to provide for my family and a future in agriculture for my son. Owning land and farming alongside my family has always been my dream, and I'm happy to do so. Unfortunately, Summit Pipeline cuts right through the middle of the farm I purchased. The payment proposed by Summit Pipeline will not cover the losses and extra expenses that will incur. I, along with adjoining landowners, have spent millions of dollars on an extensive drainage system to boost production on our higher value crops. Summit Pipeline crosses or is on top of a 48-inch top.
Thank you. Great. Because this will be submitted to the record anyway, we're just going to go ahead and not have our court reporter transcribe the video itself. So, thank you. Appreciate that. Go ahead.
Maine, which is the outlet for 1,600 acres. Furthermore, I am an organic farmer. I do not use herbicides or commercial fertilizer to help restore the ground. To take care of the ground, I field cultivate, tine weed, and plant cover crops, and have many fields hand weeded and plowed, all to produce a crop that will support my family and be able to make payments on my beginning farmer loan. To add to my concerns, our family's employees. Our family farm employs 70 H-2A workers from Guatemala who live in a state-inspected housing provided by our farm. The pipeline would be within hundreds of feet of this housing. It is a hazard and could someday not pass inspection for our housing. Not having housing for our workers would be destructive to our farming operation, relating back to the fact that we are organic. These workers help with the hand weeding to keep our land cared for. This opportunity has provided jobs and a future for the community and the families as well. Lastly is my concern for the safety of myself, neighbors, and the livestock within a half-mile of the pipeline. In a 3-mile radius, there are 12 private homes, some being century farms, 600,000 laying hens, and over 20,000 hogs. There can be the best plans to prevent and fix problems that may arise, but even perfect plans and precautions do not come with a promise of safety. In closing, I ask you to consider the future of my family farm, the expenses, and the time that I have spent bettering the land to produce organic crops, and the safety of my neighbors. Our extensive tile work cost millions in hours of hard work, but it has proved to benefit many farmers, 1,600 acres, and allowed me the chance to continue farming the land so that my son can have the same opportunities and ultimately a place to call home. If Summit Carbon Pipeline has interested parties in having their land being used for the pipeline, could it not be rerouted? If private companies can assert eminent domain, how can our family farm survive the damages and difficulties and continue to better the ground? Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Fehr's Farming Organic. As you can probably tell from that beginning 4 or 5 minutes, today's video will not be the most upbeat and fun video, but it'll be a very important video. Right now, you can see in the background, I'm about 200 feet north of where all of our Guatemalans live, and right beside me is an intake. This is exactly where that pipeline is going to be cutting across this road, headed east. They're that close to where they all live and sleep. Now that opening letter was a letter my brother Charlie wrote down to the Des Moines Register, I believe about a month ago, addressing this pipeline and Summit Carbon pipeline that'll be going through, hopefully not going through, but proposed to go through the land here where I live, where my brother lives, where all my neighbors live and farm. Obviously the H2A guys live up here. We're going to go check out where they live and just what it means for us personally and them to have a house to stay in. We're going to go talk to some farmers that will be affected by it, my neighbors. We will go show you guys exactly what it is going to do to the fields around us. Obviously, highlighting that tile, that 48-inch main that helps everybody in the surrounding area, 1,600 acres. Let that wrap around your mind. 1,600 acres that tile drains for, and their pipeline is going to go right through it. So between this house right here and the house over there and that one is where all of our H2A workers stay. And this is their church, less than 250 feet away from the pipeline, which is going to be right in that field right there, is where all these guys live. Now, I have mentioned it many times, the importance that this crew does on our farm, and for them to have housing, which I have been to Guatemala, and I can tell you right now, what they have here in these houses is 10 times better than what they have down in Guatemala. So for us to have the opportunity to help them and them help us, this place right here serves as a spot they can come up to America, have an amazing opportunity to support their families, their communities, and this pipeline is less than 200 feet away. And like Charlie said in that letter, you can take all the safety precautions you want, but the second it doesn't pass a inspection, that means this housing right here is probably not going to be able to be used for them. Now, in that flyover I did while I was reading Charlie's letter is exactly where that pipeline is going to be going. You can see there's a cornfield that's bordered by another bean field. Then it comes to the house I'm at now, and that just keeps going. It goes less than a half mile away from hog barns. It'll go a half mile away from our new chicken barns, our remodeled ones. It goes a half mile away from my home, my brother Charlie's home, a bunch of neighbors. I mean, it's going to go right in the middle of our backyards. And the thing is, there's people that don't oppose it, that don't mind if they take the pipeline through their land. And if you haven't figured out already, we kind of do mind. And it's not just us, it's our neighbors. And it'd be one thing if it was a new, electrical thing going through to give us cheaper electricity, but it's not. It's not going to be benefiting the public. It's not going to be benefiting us, not our neighbors, not the livestock, not just, obviously, the farms, the crops. It's not going to benefit those. It's benefiting a private company. And right now, the government is going to give them eminent domain to put this pipeline through our land, and that's just not something we want. So they've been trying to get this pipeline through for a few years now, and obviously people have had a lot of pushback on it. I think they're kind of just waiting until we crack, and I can tell you right now, we are not going to. The money they said they'll give us for doing it is not even close to the millions of dollars we have spent on these fields. Our neighbors have spent on these fields, all the drainage tile, everything. I mean, all the livestock around the surrounding area, the money they're going to give us is not even close to what it will cost, short-term, long-term, to cover those costs. And it would mean a lot to me, my family, my neighbors. If you just share this video, I'm going to take a screenshot, post it on Facebook, share it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, your grandma, whatever. Just get it out there, because I know it's a pretty big thing right now, at least in our area. People talk about it a lot, but just get it out there that this is what's happening, and nobody's really stepping in to stop it besides the people that don't want it. The government, I don't think, should be able to grant a private company eminent domain to put a pipeline that will not benefit us or the people that it's going through. Also, I already said it, the money they're going to give us is not going to cover the cost of the damages and obviously our lives. Might be a little dramatic, but it's true. So now we are going to head to my neighbor's house, actually, and do a little, I don't really call it an interview, but kind of just get his opinion. I mean, it's going in his backyard also. So just getting his opinion out there, getting his voice out there, and just see what he thinks of the whole thing.
Railroad track, perpendicular, they can't go through at an angle. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be clear out in my wet hole to go.
I mean, it's pretty much your backyard.
Well, yeah. It's going to be a long ways out for them to bore, because they have to directionally bore underneath that.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. So this is John Banner, my neighbor. The pipeline's pretty much going through his backyard. They're a private company, not for public gain. I mean, it's for them. And just kind of, what are your thoughts on it? You've been farming this area for...
It took generations for us to finally get a tile system that neighbors could agree on, and we've grouped together and have a nice system set up, mm-hmm. And now the pipeline's going to go right through it and tear it up.
Yeah, and from my understanding, the money that they're proposing for us is not going to cover the damages that it'll do. They're not going to come back and fix it for us.
I don't know how you can fix a 48-inch tile, and have it back the way it was when it was originally done.
Absolutely.
And then the neighbors that don't have a pipeline going through them, their water goes through that 48-inch tile. Mm-hmm. If there was a problem, I don't know how they would ever be paid for crop that they lost.
Yeah.
Because they're not in the pipeline, in the land that they're taking. So.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of what Charlie said in his letter, they can take all the safety precautions they want. They can, even if they inspect it every year, all it takes is one time, something bad to happen. Even if it happens away from your house, it's still something bad going on.
Yeah, and the plume, where's the plume going to go? Well, when you're not far from the pipeline, it doesn't take very long for the plume to get to you.
No, absolutely not.
Yep.
So we've been kind of talking a little bit about just the way they're going about it, and I'm just going to ask you to just reiterate kind of what you just told me.
Well, one of the things I was going to bring up is the field they want to go through. I've switched my farming practices to strip till and cover crops so that I could get involved with carbon sequestration, so I'm signed up for carbon credits. But if they put the pipeline through there, that's going to eliminate that field of being able to capture carbon credits. Mm-hmm. So
So they're going to eliminate my possibility of doing something for the environment, you know, for them to put their pipeline through.
Yeah, and I've said it multiple times in this video, they're in it to make money, not to care about the little guys like us that put all the time and effort into making this land more farmable for us. Obviously that 48-inch pipeline or the tile that we've mentioned multiple times. And then one more thing, we talked about they're giving money to people that just sign it and don't stand to fight it. And it's kind of a sad situation. They obviously have more money as that company does than us little guys out here. So it takes everybody to kind of just stand up to them and get it to not pass. I mean, it's going to change a lot for people around here, and whether people know it or not, their opinion does matter. I mean, if they sign on, that's pretty much telling us that we got to quit living the way we live, quit farming the way we farm.
Yep. Nope, I agree with that.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so A, it's really hot outside. B, that right there, that conversation. I mean, I didn't video the entire thing just so I could get a better, because obviously when the camera comes on, you forget things, you don't say everything you want to say. But just what I did catch on camera, I hope that kind of showed you guys just what this Summit carbon pipeline will do. I mean, I didn't even know about his carbon credit thing, but just the amount of damage, the money amount of damage that it'll do, the pipeline going through, compounded with the fact that they're not gonna pay us even, I would say, 10% of the damage that it'll cause, especially that pipe or the tile main that drains 1,600 acres around this area. Like you said, when I talked to him, it took us a long time for all of us to agree on a good thing that'll help everybody in this area. And now that's all going to get thrown out the window by a multi-million-dollar company that wants to put a pipeline through to make more money for them, which is sad. And I didn't video it, but if it does go to court to get, overturned or whatever, they have a lot more money than us. I mean, all the farmers around here combined, they're going to have better lawyers, they're going to have better everything. So if we don't stop this before it goes to that point, it's not going to matter. I mean, they're gonna keep coming at us until they get their way. So just making this video, showing you guys how it will affect us, people around me, my neighbors. I haven't even gone to chicken barns and showed you guys how close it is. That flyover with the drone, I hope gave you a little bit of perspective, how close it was to the H2A guys, how close it was to the hog barns. Where I started the drone video was about a quarter of a mile from his son, John's son Jack's house, which is just, I mean, that's really close. People hate windmills by their farm or their houses. Imagine a pipeline going through. It's just not good. It's not good. It's not good. Yeah. So obviously we've talked to my neighbors. We've showed you guys how close it is to the H2A guys, and just obviously that sparks room for concern when you're that close. And then Charlie mentioned in his letter, that it's going to go right through our backyard. His backyard, my backyard. I mean, he's got kids. I'm hoping someday I can have kids too. Sparks room for concern, obviously. We haven't mentioned, I think John maybe did, just all the crops that they're going to put that through also. The effect it'll have on them. I mentioned it before, it's all for their gain. It's not for us. So if you guys could share this video with anybody and everybody, just get it out there that this is what they're doing, and it's not the way to go about things. So just to add to the list of things that this pipeline could potentially ruin for us and our neighbors, I want to make this point very clear. This video is not just about me and my family and how this pipeline will affect us. It's about the neighbors. It's about their livestock. It's about our livestock, our crops, all of our crops together. And then just from a moral standpoint, that people with money just can't do what they want. This pipeline kind of, I guess in my opinion, kind of shows a lot of people that if you have money and you are money hungry, as I would put it, this pipeline is only going to give them money in their pockets. It's not going to benefit us. Even if they gave us all $200,000 to fix everything that's broke, it would not cover that 48-inch tile, this irrigator potentially being ruined, all the crops it's going through. It won't cover that. So that's kind of the reason I'm making this video. It's kind of the last stand, I would put it, for us small guys going up against the big companies with all the money. This irrigator just kind of shows it. We share this irrigator with our neighbor to the west. This covers roughly 300 acres combined between our fields and their fields. It's been in our family, their family, for countless years, ever since I can remember. So this adds to the list of things that this pipeline could possibly damage and just completely get rid of. Well, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you learned a little bit about the situation going on around here with the Summit Carbon Pipeline going through our fields. Once again, just please share this video. Get it out there. Get the information out there of what these guys are trying to do to our land, the land we farmed for countless years, the land my brother has bought to start his family, to provide for them. Just share it. Get it out there. Just goes to show you, if you don't fight back, no one else will for you. So, once again, thank you for watching. Subscribe if you have not, and we'll catch you in the next one. Also, I want to give a quick thank you to everybody who commented on the last video, just praying for my grandpa and his health. He really appreciated it. He is at home. He is doing much better. And just thank you guys again.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fehr, I assume you'd like to admit that as evidence?
I would.
Okay. Are there objections from the parties? Okay, seeing none, we will admit the video as Fehr Exhibit 1. I do want to clarify the video, because it is was provided to us as a link, will be downloaded in its static form so that the link cannot be changed later. So when it enters the record as Fehr Hearing Exhibit 1, it will be static as we have seen it today. Okay, Mr. Fehr, we do have some questions for you, and so I hope you will indulge us. And I realize we just saw much of this in the video. However, for proper cross-examination, it's helpful to hear it from you as well. Can you describe the current use of the property and any plans you may have for a different use in the future?
We are grain farmers. We raise corn, oats, alfalfa, and soybeans. We're a certified organic farm. 100% of our acreage is certified organic, which is kind of a 3-year process where you don't use any chemicals, and then you can certify, and so that's kind of a special thing, I guess, or a little unique way of farming. This particular farm's been certified probably for 15 years. We need drainage for that because we go over our fields after we plant. We harrow, like Thomas said, cultivate. If the drainage isn't working, we can't get into the field to take care of our crops. So that's one concern we have. We do, quite obviously, have plans to probably build more buildings, more livestock facilities, maybe housing. The future's hard to predict, but my grandsons, I have 6 grandsons in the operation, and they are quite active. They are, I guess I would say, fairly progressive, so the development on the ground is a concern. We are trying to get a estimate on doing some drip tape irrigation. That would be where you plow in a drip tape every 30 inches, probably 8 to 10, 12 inches into the ground, and then it pump it full of water and it irrigates the ground. So that would not be compatible with any other ground disturbance. If you look on the right here, the pipeline was going to come across. This was the original route.
Just to clarify, Mr. Fehr, you're referring to the notch out in the southwest corner that abuts the gravel road?
Correct, where the hand is there.
Yeah, sorry, I should have gone over it. I apologize. When you're describing the property, just keep in mind that later we'll be reading the transcripts, and so we have to use landmarks and words to make sure that we can read that record and understand it. Does that make sense?
Okay, so you would say in the southwest corner of my property.
Just describe it as if we were on the phone and I couldn't see that.
There, if you notice on the video, there's actually a building, a hog house built on that site. We actually sold, I think it's 5 or 6 acres off to another company, and they built a hog house there. So the original pipeline was going to be south of the acreage that is on the west side of the gravel road. It was going to go straight across, and they told us many times you can't move the pipeline. So we came one day and there were pickups parked along our gravel road, maybe some even in our building site, and they were surveying, and we asked them what they were doing, and they said, well, we have to move the pipeline because somebody built a hog house in the track of the pipeline. My first question was, I thought you couldn't move the pipeline. But they moved it from about 300 feet south of the house to 250 feet north of the house, which means they're basically either crossing or paralleling a 42-inch tile main in the route of the pipeline that they have here on this map. That intake is basically right there. And we have had a couple meetings with Summit. Maybe 2 years ago, they came out to inform us of what they were going to do. We told them we were not interested. We didn't. I don't even know if they talked price or damages at that point. We just weren't interested, and I guess that's still my standing. But they are very arrogant people. They come out and have surveyed, which we've been informed that they have the right to do that. We've asked them to let us know when they're coming. They don't communicate. They don't let us know. They just come out and come on our property. Like Thomas said in the video, I think they're a privately owned group. I don't know where they get their funding from for sure. I'd be somewhat interested in knowing how much maybe grant money they get and where that grant money originates, how that works. I know there's some political things. The governor, I don't know if the governor today, but I know Branstad, the previous governor, has been on the radio saying what a great thing the Summit pipeline is. Between the private and the political part of this, it really concerns me as a private owner of property. Kind of brings to mind when I was a child growing up and the Russians were taking property from their private citizens. I have neighbors that have signed off or signed contracts. I don't know for how much, maybe a new pickup, maybe 2 pickups. I guess if people want to sign off their rights to their property for a value, that's their business, but I guess that would be a big concern of mine. And that seems to be what Summit's whole intent is here. Now, I don't know if that really has anything to do with the Iowa Utilities Board, because I personally don't think this is a utility by definition, because I think utilities are supposed to help the people. And I don't see where sequestering carbon or liquid carbon helps anybody except private concerns. And I think eminent domain, I believe, was put into effect for the government, for the federal government, to attain property for the citizens, the betterment of society. I guess I'd also maybe ask the Summit people, so you're piping carbon up to North Dakota to put into the ground. Is this to frack for oil? Or what is the plan? Is this carbon just put in the ground for no good reason? I'd be willing for you to just tell me that right now, if you would.
Sorry, Mr. Fehr.
Again.
Yeah, your testimony is really limited to your ground, and so we don't really. This isn't an opportunity to ask Summit or the board questions, but we appreciate your input on the parcel.
Okay, so if you have an easement, how much of your property does that easement cover? I think it's kind of open-ended. They can expand the easement. So if you can, I think in legal terminology, it's more or less. The more could be the whole piece of property, right? So if 2 years from now they decide to put another pipeline, and then 4 years from now they decide to put 2 more pipelines or electric or whatever, I mean, if they have the easement, they can do what they want to on that, right? I guess it's kind of strange that you would go out in the middle of nowhere, basically, in the middle of a section when you could probably run the pipeline beside a road. You would have access to repair it, to inspect it, all those things. We actually have a natural gas pipeline runs through another farm, which they will cross. It's just half a mile east of where this property is, and they'll have to cross that. So they have an easement there, and I don't know how much people work together on easements, I guess, or whose easement stands above the other one. But the natural gas pipeline does benefit us because we do have a tap, and we do use natural gas for drying grain and heating some buildings. I guess the other thing, our drainage tile, the 48-inch main, I would probably consider that an easement. We probably should have some official documentation on that, but I have neighbors that have paid for that to go through my ground, so I would say they have an easement there before Summit even thought about their pipeline. So I put in a private pipe, and they can come and put their private pipe through my private pipe. Kind of a little confusing situation.
Mr. Fehr, can you, with the pointer, can you, you talked about the 40-inch drainage tile.
Okay, I would guess it's this here right here. I would guess that's the 48. And then,
And just quick, got a couple questions on that 48-inch tile. So 48-inch tile is going through there. How deep is that 48-inch tile?
well, a drainage tile just runs on slope, so you have to have, so if the ground goes up, you have more cover. So I would say it runs anywhere from 4 to 6 feet of cover up to maybe 18, 19 feet of cover, depending on if it goes through a hill or a rise in the ground, because you have to keep the same drop or slope on the tile.
So at a minimum depth, it could be, what'd you say, 4 feet?
Yes, we have where it starts out through our ground, it would all have at least 4 feet of cover. Where it starts out, we had to actually mount some dirt on top of that to be able to farm over it, because when you till, you can probably till 2 feet deep, and you for sure don't want to, disturb that.
And at a maximum on your property, not the 18 to 19.
I think we have some 19-foot cuts, and that might be to the bottom. So what would that be, 15 foot of cover?
In what year was that tile installed?
I wish I could tell you that for sure, but I think it was around 2015, 2016.
So relatively.
It's in good shape.
Okay.
The other thing I'll just mention is then the whole farm is pattern tiled, so there's tile going off of that, and there's probably a tile every 60 feet, depending on the slope of the ground, again, how that's actually laid out. I should have maybe brought a picture of that. But.
And I'm just asking Mr. Fehr because where I'm at, we do not have that big a tile. That's a big tile line. So do you see? So so according to this KMZ map, you can see where that tile's been installed. Then, correct?
I'm sure that is the route. So it goes. It would go about a half a mile further to the. Well, it's actually only a quarter mile to the creek. You can see the creek.
Yep.
Right there. So it starts right there, goes through the neighbor's farm into our ground, and then it continues on to the west. Basically, probably follows, right there, I think, and then it goes along the fence line there. And there's a large intake right in the corner right there where the pointer is. There's a large intake that has a cover over it. And that's actually, I think, where the 48 ends, and then it might be a 36, and I say that drains 1,600 acres of ours and neighboring farm ground.
So just out of curiosity, because we've been talking for the last week and a half a lot about soil disturbance, things of that nature with this pipeline coming through, do you guys see a yield drop on top of that 48-inch tile?
We do. I would say for the first 2 years, we probably got very little crop off of that. Sure. Plus, it was difficult to farm over. obviously, we spent a lot of time trying to restore it. We have some heavy equipment. We have a Caterpillar excavator. We do some of our own excavating and tiling. And so we've done the process to get it back into shape. And you can see it on the map. So it's not the same.
And again, I've not been part of any big tile projects like this. Where I've seen tile projects, they have not been this big. So you say that the landowners funded some of this project, correct?
It was 100% funded by the landowners.
Okay. And then
we hired an engineer to lay it out. So coefficient is how many inches of water. If you have a 1 inch rain, how long it takes to drain that away, and some of them things. And yeah, it was.
And that was my next question.
There's no government funding. No.
Sure. So that was my next question. So this wasn't something that the county helped pay for, and so then you had to hire your own engineer, your own contractors for this project, correct?
We did. We had.
Okay.
Trying to think. I think there's at least 4. There might be 5 neighbors. We had a lot of meetings in the machine shed office over this project, and it's a very considerable project for our area.
And what's the material made out of? That's the 48 inch. Is it a plastic or is it actually a?
It actually is a plastic tile. I think it's what they call dual wall. So it's got a corrugated outside, a smooth inside, which gives it more better flow and stronger.
But not a perforated.
The 48 is not perforated, I don't believe. They did actually, in some places, I think, drill holes in it to perforate it if it wasn't too deep and we wanted to try to get some drainage from that.
Sure.
The main is not actually the drainage source. The branches off of it would be the perforated tile.
Okay. No, I'm just curious on a tile that big, trying to learn. So I think those are the only questions I had about that. Just Chair Helen.
Thank you. Okay, we touched on, you said there's a natural gas pipeline. Did you say this property or was it a different property?
It would be to the east. It's actually where the chicken house, if you go east a little further yet, and then you got to go east further yet, I think. Okay, now if you see right on the bottom, there is the chicken houses. Okay, the natural gas pipeline runs within, I think, when we put up the second chicken house there, we had to get an exception to the rule because the tap is actually about right there. It's 50 feet, I think, from the corner down here, and it runs at just a little bit of an angle.
Okay, so that's on a property that's
Right,
not
it
subject.
runs north 4 or 5 miles, and then it runs south to West Bend, which is 3 miles south of there. So it actually runs, through this ground too.
Okay, thank you. And there we go. Appreciate that. Okay, and then I think a little bit earlier you mentioned on that carve out in the southwest corner where the green shaded area, or where there's an exception to the red shaded area. Did I hear you say correctly earlier? There's a hog building on there now.
There is.
Okay.
On the video, it showed that actually.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why they moved it.
In one hog building. Are there any other structures?
Two structures.
Okay. And can you give us a general idea of where they would be if they were on this picture?
Well, one would be kind of in this area, and then the other one just south of it in that area, I'd say.
Okay, so they really kind of run parallel one another east to west on opposite sides of the property.
Correct. They're just about square buildings.
Okay.
They're wide, about as wide as they are
But
long.
they are square. Ish.
Close.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, on this particular property, then, are there any other easements other than the presumed tile easement? I think you said earlier there wasn't, but I'm just checking off, make sure we've got all our.
On this piece of property, I would say it would just be the tile, no other easements or any other buildings. The irrigator is to the west, or to the east, excuse me, to the east. If you go east again to the creek there, there's an irrigator, probably pivots about right in here, and then it runs for a half mile up to the road, and it swings around and covers about 300 acres. So the creek actually bends here, but sorry about that. It comes, down to here, so it ain't arches out like that.
Okay,
And
so that pivot would run on those western parcels as well.
It does not cross the creek. No, it's what they call a windshield wiper. So it starts here at the creek and has to go around this way, and then you have to back it up.
Okay.
So it does not come over here.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned potential installation of drip tape irrigation on the properties there on the western side.
Correct.
Can you give us, well, first of all, you said you've looked into that. Have you contracted with someone or taken any concrete steps?
We're waiting for a quote on the price.
Okay.
So, no, we have not signed the contract.
So can you give us an idea of how drip tape irrigation is installed, and how deep it is, and what's the extent of the infrastructure necessary?
They install it with a knife, and usually there's 3 or 4, depending on how large of applicator you have, and it unrolls and is put in the ground. I would say 12 inches on an average, maybe less, maybe not over 12, because the idea is to keep the water and let the water soak into the ground.
And how is the water supplied to that system?
It'd be through a pump, through pressurized, similar to a lawn.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like at a golf course.
Mm-hmm.
They probably use some drip tape. I don't know. But the thing about drip tape is it's supposedly more economical. You don't have evaporation because you aren't spraying the water out in the air, and it's where the crop can use it. So it is a.
Where would the pump be located for that system?
That would depend on how the system was laid out. Quite obviously you would need power, you'd need electricity. You would probably need a well. There's a possibility you could draw out of the creek if it doesn't normally have enough water when it's dry, so that's the problem with that. You would need a well.
Okay.
And it would probably either be near where there's power, near the road up there.
Okay, thank you. One other quick question. You mentioned that you're now certified organic, and most of the parcels that come in front of us are non-organic. So, in terms of calculation of yield loss, is it roughly the same formula? How does one try to understand exactly what the yield loss is in an organic farming operation?
I tell people it's weeds and nutrition, So if we can get enough nutrients out of raw manure to raise a crop, and we can not have any weeds, our potential is the same as a conventional farmer. And I would say, you know, if you go to the coffee shop, people talk 200, 250 bushel corn. We can raise 250 bushel corn. So the yield drag or yield loss is very minimal if you do a good job. Yeah, I guess Summit did come with a proposal here the other day, my son told me, where the girl had found an organic spreadsheet or something. She did have about a 60% yield drag in her estimates for crop damages, which in our operation isn't, that isn't normally what we have.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question from me before we head over to the parties. Do you recommend, or do you have a recommendation for an alternate route for the proposed line? And can you describe the advantages or disadvantages should that be necessary?
I'm a little hesitant to make an alternate route. If someone wants to come and pay me to do that, I'd be real happy to do that.
If you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Don't feel compelled.
No, I'll go ahead. I'm just throwing that out but it would seem like if you were near a road, or if you followed a road, or where the county, the state, somebody already has an easement, that would be a good thing for several reasons. Like I say, for inspection, future maintenance. I think that would be a good opportunity. They obviously supposedly have 75% of the landowners signed up. I think if they used a better tactic, if they went to other landowners, they could probably find a route where people wanted to participate, rather than forcing it on somebody.
Okay, that concludes my questions for now. I believe Mr. Horn is now online. I'm sorry, just crossed my wires from a very long time ago. Mr. Taylor, do you have any questions for the witness?
May I defer, since I didn't hear all of the testimony, and maybe I'll pick up a few questions after others.
Okay, thank you. Apologies on the name. Ms. Grunhagen, I believe you had your name tag up first.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, my name is Chris Grunhagen, and I represent the Iowa Farm Bureau Federation in these proceedings, and I have a few questions for you. I guess starting with the video, just to make sure we have a clear record, the gentleman that was narrating the video, is that your grandson, Corey Fehr?
That Corey would be my son, and
Your
that
son.
would be Corey's son. Thomas is my
Thomas.
grandson.
Okay, so Thomas was the one that narrated the video?
Correct.
Okay. And he talked about Charlie, and is that another grandson?
Yes. Charlie would be his brother, would be another grandson. Corey actually has 6 sons, and all 6 of them are involved in the farming operation, I would say.
The parcel that in the video he referenced an area where 70 H2A workers were housed. Is that the farmstead that is immediately to the west?
It's right there in the middle.
Okay. And do you know on that farmstead approximately where is their housing at?
This building here houses probably half of them, and then there's a house right here, I believe, houses you, and now there is a house over here where, excuse me, some of them are. So between the three facilities.
Do you know approximately how far those facilities would be to the pipeline?
I think it's around 250 feet.
And are those...
And
go ahead.
That is, I think it's state inspected housing. I don't think it's federal. I think the state inspects that every spring before they come and do a housing inspection.
And so how many months a year are they living there?
We get the most of them come for 3 months, usually come 1st of June, and are going to be going back here Friday. So most of them are on a 3-month H-2A visa. We'll a lot of times bring 8 to 10 of them early on a 9-month to do to work early and late.
Thank you. And Thomas interviewed a neighbor by the name of John Benjamin.
John would be west of here about 1.5 miles. So you have to go west just a little more, I believe. Yeah, right there is where John lives. His son Jack lives right in that facility.
Right there. How do you
And
spell?
yeah, like I was talking about, the railroad track is right there.
So that's 1.5 miles west, the railroad track is, approximately.
Yes.
How do you spell John's and Jack's last name? Do you know?
I think it's Banwart, I believe.
Thank you. You mentioned, and I apologize, I forget if it was the video or you, so I apologize for that, for my notes here, but that you had concerns about the size and the location of the easement.
Yes, we've probably never actually received an official easement request, I guess, but from other testimony, I would say there's not a specific size or area. It doesn't have an end to it, I guess, or time-wise either.
So have you seen the Exhibit H's that have been filed for your parcels?
You know, I have not.
Okay. But you would want the location of the easement and the size of the easement to be specific?
That would probably be a good thing. Yeah, if the whole property can be the easement at some point, that's not what we're thinking. I guess I haven't thought about it a lot, because I just would hope that they would go somewhere else, or that the Iowa Utility Board for sure would not give eminent domain. I guess today that's probably my biggest thing, is that I don't think eminent domain pertains to this, and hopefully that won't happen.
And you had mentioned that you do have a tile map of your pattern tile.
Yes, definitely there's a map, because that was all put in with GPS mapping and for depth, yeah.
So if the pipeline is constructed, would you be willing to share that map with Summit so that they can know the location of those tiles?
Actually, the first time Summit came out, my son and Brian, engineer that engineered this, shared them maps with them, and told them that this was a problem, and they have never come back or acknowledge the map. So Summit does have a copy of the map.
Now, these two parcels, I think they show that your son Corey is renting one of them, and then his son Charlie is renting the other one.
The parcel right in front of us there, I and my wife own, and we lease that or rent that to actually Clear Creek Acres, which is a farming operation owned by my son Corey and his sons. And so they farm, all the ground is farmed by Clear Creek Acres, and Charlie's would be the same. I couldn't say that for sure, but I think that's the agreement they have.
You said Clear, can you repeat that again for me?
Clear Creek Acres.
Is that a company that's owned by them, or?
Correct. It's an LLC, I believe, owned by either my sons or my grandsons. It's a farming, yeah.
And is Noah Fehr also a grandson?
He is.
Okay. So Noah and Charlie Fehr own the two parcels to the west of yours there?
Correct. They purchased that ground with young farmer loans.
Okay. So when Thomas was talking about the property that he just purchased with a beginning farmer loan, where is that property located?
I think that was in the letter he was quoting when he started the video that Charlie wrote. Okay. So that was actually Charlie and Noah's that he does have some ground, but it would be in Kossuth County, north of Whittemore, I believe.
So the farm that was referenced in the video with the beginning farmer loan, are they these two parcels there to the west, or is it a different property?
Correct. It would be this parcel here, and it would, I would guess for the young farmer loan, it probably had to be divided in half. So I think Charlie owns the south half and Noah owns the north half.
Are Noah, Charlie, or Thomas, are they planning on testifying in this proceeding yet?
I don't know as they've turned in a request to testify. Actually, they have jobs. They're busy. Yeah. This isn't something that really fits into our schedule real well.
That's understandable. I've seen Corey's name on quite a few of the parcels. Do you know by chance how many parcels he leases that's going to be affected by the pipeline?
How many parcels Corey would be involved in, or farm, or?
Yeah, farm.
Well, we farm the ground all except this piece right here. So it goes from here a mile across, then it misses a quarter mile, and then we farm this ground where it's red again for a mile and a half, mile and a quarter, I believe.
Does he also lease ground from Joe and Marie Wirtz and Lori James Copeland?
Yes, he does, and that would actually be the ground to the east. Some of this, I gotta get my bearings a little bit here. So I'd say it'd be this here. And actually right here is where Thomas lives. And Charlie lives down here on this building site.
Is that the poultry site that we referenced earlier?
Right, the two long buildings there are the poultry. There's 600,000 laying hens. Yeah.
And so you have family on either side of the pipeline in this area?
That's correct.
The hog barns that you, when you were talking to Chairman Howland there, do you know approximately how far those hog barns are from the proposed route?
Just looking at the map, I would say less than 500 feet. But here in the corner, you know. And there are actually more hog houses. I think Thomas referenced that in his video. That I don't remember what the number of hogs housed within, you know, less than a half mile of the pipeline was.
So there's quite a bit of livestock in this neighborhood.
There is a lot of livestock. Being organic farmers, we depend on the manure out of the livestock facilities for our nutrients.
So does the proximity of the livestock buildings to the pipeline, does that concern you?
Yes.
Would there be a distance that you would find acceptable for the livestock barns to be away from the pipeline?
You know,
If it were built.
I would say no.
Fair enough. When you were talking to Chair Howland about your organic farming system and how that might be priced, you mentioned that your yields were comparable to traditional farming methods, but we didn't talk a lot about price. How is your organic crop priced?
In the organic business, I would say it's strictly a supply and demand situation. You know, I think anybody that's an economist, everything goes back to supply and demand eventually, but there's no board of trade, so organics are not traded in the speculator market. I would say we've been farming organic for 20, 25 years. If you take an average, the price for organic grain has probably been double. That's just scenario. I think today organic corn's maybe $12 range, 10 to 14. Soybeans are probably $25 to $35. Oats don't have as much of a premium, so they're maybe in that $7 to $8 range.
So the price that is paid for organic crops is pretty significant premium.
Excuse me?
So the price that is being paid for organic crops, there's a pretty significant premium versus the Chicago Board of Trade prices.
Most of the time.
And so would the county yield average price, would that be a fair comparison for the price that you're getting paid for the organic crop?
I guess I don't know if the county has an average price. I'm not for sure how that works. One thing I know is, like for crop insurance, there is an organic specified, and you can prove your yield. And you can actually, if we have a contract to sell grain at a certain price, they will take that into account.
And is that public information, to your knowledge?
I would tell you. I'm not a promoter of organic probably, but I have done it long enough. I can see the benefits in doing it for myself. I think it benefits a lot of other people. There again, I wouldn't go out and tell any of my neighbors they should farm organically.
Let me just ask the question this way. What do you think would be a fair way to price your crop if there's a crop yield loss in the pipeline easement area?
That would depend on the year. I don't know if there is a fair price or fair anything. You know, I always told my children, you know, our name's Fehr, but life isn't fair. So I understand that.
But you think it would be fair to pay more than what traditional crops might get paid off a Chicago Board of Trade price?
Yeah, well, the last proposal we have gotten, the proposal was more than, I think it was $12 for corn. And I think 120 or 140 bushel. So I, in that scenario, I would probably be more disappointed in what they were offering for yield than price, actually.
So, in your opinion, Summit offered a fair price. The yield just didn't match. Part of the equation just didn't match up with what your yields are.
Yeah, I guess we could say that. I didn't sign that or agree with that, quite obviously, but.
Do you participate in any conservation programs on these two parcels?
There are not any on these two parcels. We do have some CRP along the creek, some filter strips.
But not on these particular
parcels. Not on
parcels?
these two parcels. I don't believe there's any.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Ms. Stuck. Am I saying your name correctly?
You are. It's stuck, just like it's spelled. Hello, Mr. Fehr. I'm Lisa Stuck from Wright County. My husband and I are also landowners. And I just have a few questions I would like to ask. Would it surprise you if I told you that a Summit representative was asked if they could take this pipeline through the county ditches to avoid our field? This Summit representative said they like to keep the pipeline straight because anytime there's a bend in the pipeline, that is a weak spot. Would that surprise you?
I guess I've laid enough pipe to know that. So no, having a bend in a pipe is a weak spot. Summit told us the pipe could not be moved. 6 months later, they came and started surveying and moved the pipe.
Well, when I was looking at the pipe, that's what brought up the question. What is the closest EMS service or response to your area?
West Bend would be the closest, and that's 4, 5, 6 miles. Which brings up another little fact I was going to bring up. I served as an EMT on the West Bend Volunteer Ambulance Service for about 15 years. We were volunteers. We got paid on-call time, a little compensation. We got paid for calls we went on. We were always short on help to staff to be on call. And I just visited with a young EMT the other night, and they're shorter on staff today than they were 3 or 4 years ago when I retired.
And so the area you're in, they're volunteer EMS personnel.
That is correct. There's a hospital in Emmitsburg that actually West Bend EMS operates under. And from there, I would say that's 15 to 18 miles, depending on.
Do you know if they have been given any training or equipment updates to be ready when there is a rupture or if there is a rupture?
Not that I'm aware of. No, in fact, I'm pretty sure they have not, because I was to a supervisor's meeting probably 3 weeks ago, and at that point they hadn't.
Do you worry about the risk of a rupture on your land?
Yes, I would. That would be a question I'd have. How many PSI does this pipe carry? I've heard anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000. I think the natural gas line, and I'm not an expert, so I don't know for sure, but I think it's around 2,000 pounds of pressure, and I think it's about a 6-inch line. And I know a neighbor knocked a valve off the top of a line where it comes out of the ground, and it shot natural gas in the air, and he said it sounded like a jet. And for luck, there wasn't a spark, so it shot natural gas for about a day till they got it shut down. And yeah, there was not, I mean, it was a very lucky incident.
Are you aware that FEMA is currently working on new safety rules for carbon pipeline?
I guess I don't know much about carbon pipeline. I'm not up to date on.
Have you had much interaction with land agents for Summit?
We've had a couple meetings with people from Summit. The first one, I think there was just one gentleman came out, and that's when my son gave him the tile maps, explained to him the problem with crossing most of our property. I was actually in on a meeting probably a year and a half ago, where I think there was 3 or 4 representatives came out, tried to talk us into taking compensation for it. We told them we weren't interested. That's probably the only 2 times I've actually been in direct contact with them, other than some of the people they send out to survey. I've asked them if they're stopped on the road or in my driveway, what they're doing, and they tell me they're surveying for slumming. And I asked them if they'd please let me know if they're going to enter my property, and they said they had the right to be there. That was their.
Did any of them ever threaten you with eminent domain?
No, I wouldn't say anybody ever threatened with anything. No, I hope not.
Do you feel it's kind of ironic that you run an organic farm with no poisons and no chemicals, and they want to run a pipeline through with hazardous material in it?
Yes, there's a lot of ironic things happening.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Colas?
I think I'm going to pass right now because she asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask. I do have one question though. Of that 1,600 acres, do you use the no-till technique?
You know, in organics, we do not no-till, and there's a lot of different terminology in farm community anymore. We have to till the ground to get rid of the weeds, we feel. Although that brings up another interesting thing. We use a lot of technology. So this spring we had an autonomous tractor, probably worked 3,000 or 4,000 acres of our ground autonomously. Was actually operated by a company out of California. They ran the tractor in California. They had an observer in the field. We use laser weeding some, which is a thing where you have a machine that takes a picture of the weeds in the crop, and then it shoots the weeds with a laser to kill them. And that technology is probably a couple years old, and it's definitely evolving. And we're working with a company that makes that technology. So now I can't even remember what your first question was.
No, you're doing a great job. So in other words, you are very progressive in doing what is good for your crop, your harvest, and to ensure that this land will be in good shape for the next generation and for future generations.
That's our goal. That's our goal, definitely. My grandsons, I would say, are fairly progressive. They, that's another thing with organic farming, where we do have to go over the ground several times, to have to turn around for a pipeline, have to turn around for a windmill. Those things, we do farm around several windmills. Them are all obstacles, I guess, and then that does cut into our efficiencies and the amount of grain we can grow.
Yeah, time and money, more time and money then.
Correct.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions from the parties, Board Member Burns, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, just a couple of clarifications. So what's the diameter of the pipe being proposed in your property? I missed that, or don't know.
The carbon pipe?
Carbon, yeah.
We were told 6 to 24 inches. They're pretty vague on a lot of things.
And I just caught the tail end of this, but the chicken building, the new chicken building, what kind of production is going on there? You say they're layers? Or
It will be egg production.
egg production?
And they're actually buildings that were put up in 96 and 98. And they were built for egg production, and we did that for about 20 years, and then we got out of that, and the building sat empty for a couple of years, and now we're remodeling them and going back into egg production.
And how many chickens did you say that can house?
600,000.
600,000, okay. Makes my small flock look like nothing at home. And then, just out of curiosity, you talked about a neighbor hit what I believe probably was maybe like a farm tap type of situation with the natural gas line. Do you know approximately how long ago that happened?
I would say 3 to 5 years ago.
And that would have happened in which county?
It would have been in Palo Alto County. It would have probably been 3 miles north on that pipeline that runs by our chicken house.
Okay, thank you. And then, just out of curiosity, so you would have received an easement offer. Did you guys ever make a counter offer back to the company?
We have not.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. No, we haven't.
All right, thank you. Thank you for coming today, and that's all the questions that I have. And I don't know, Mr. Taylor sounded like maybe he would have some questions at the conclusion of everybody else, but I don't know if we want to check back in with him.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize if I covered something that was covered before I got on. Mr. Fehr, the fact that you have organic crops there, does that present any particular or unique issues with regard to the construction and operation of this pipeline that perhaps the ordinary agriculture would not?
Probably in the fact that we have to till our soil more. We have to, go plant, tine weed, rotary hoe, cultivate. So we go over our ground maybe 5-6 times through the summer and the spring, which if the pipeline ran straight along the south fence, probably wouldn't be as big a thing, but by the way they have it laid out today, it basically cuts both of them farms in half at an angle, which is a real problem when you're tilling, because you have a straight tillage tool and you come up to an angle and you either have to leave spots where weeds grow and can't plant crop, whatever. So it's, yeah, this is about as bad of scenario as we could ask for.
And it's my understanding, you said you don't use no-till because you're organic. It's my understanding, and I'm not a farmer, that if you use no-till, you have to use more chemicals perhaps than other kinds of cropping. Is that correct?
Well, we don't use any chemicals, so we can't use more. We can't use any chemicals, so we do tillage is our weed control. It's kind of like you probably have a garden, or you've been familiar with a garden. If you use a hoe to cut the weeds instead of chemicals.
Okay. Do you sell your corn to ethanol plants?
You know, that brings up an interesting thing. We do sell a little bit of grain to an ethanol plant because we do some transition crops where you can't certify your grain as organic for 2 years. So we sell that to a ethanol plant by Emmitsburg, Poet mainly. We do maybe some other ones. But from my understanding, Poet actually is not participating in the Summit pipeline. I don't know if
I think that's correct.
correct, which seems a little strange in the big scheme of things, that it's for ethanol plants, and I happen to have one in my backyard that doesn't participate, and they want to bring the pipes from my farm.
You mentioned that you irrigate, is that correct?
We do have irrigation. There's a irrigator on one property, and we are considering some drip, we call it drip tape irrigation, in-ground irrigation.
Okay. So I assume the irrigation has to have a water source from somewhere. Is that water source anywhere near the pipeline route?
The present wells that we have for the pivot irrigator are probably within less than 500 feet. I would guess they could be within a couple hundred feet. The 2 wells, we have 2 wells for that irrigator.
And then how about the new kind of irrigation that you were talking about?
We do not have a final plan for that, so, you know, they'd be within less than a half a mile. The farm's only a half mile wide, so.
Okay. But thank you, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fehr. We appreciate it. You are excused.
Thank you.
It's my understanding Dave Renning is not here. So we will move to Ms. Jill Williamson for parcel H-PA-032, and that is virtual